Well, good evening. I'm going to take another stab at Revelation 11:18 that reads, "And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, and thou shouldst give reward to thy servants, prophets, and the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and should destroy them which destroy the earth." Okay, so this is what was talked about in Revelation 14 as the judgment hour, and other places as well. And a judgment time period. And I just want to point out, because I've talked about this before, that the word judgment properly means to distinguish, to decide, by implication to try, condemn, punish. But see, the implications aren't necessarily the proper perspective according to the next level, because punishment is part of the program, but actually people are punishing themselves. The next level doesn't have to punish anybody, but they just don't come to our aid when we have problems, when we ask them for help, because they don't ask for help, or they don't ask help from the right source, or they don't or they haven't been asking for help for their whole life, and then in the last second, when something is going wrong and they don't know nowhere else to look, they might ask for help. But then at that point, the next level doesn't see them as being a spirit or a soul that's viable to grow again, because they don't demonstrate having any of the next level mind in their vehicles, or they would have been asking for help all along, for every little thing even. You know, I mean, not that we're to be the designers of the help. No, but the best thing we can do is ask the next level for the strength to get through our problems. Seeing the problems as lesson opportunities, whether it's dealing with major health trauma, or dealing with results of being involved in criminal activity, or actually, or whatever it is that's a challenge, losing a job, or breakups in the family, and problems with children, and all the things that humans go through are all lesson opportunities. And the next level wants us to ask them for help. But we're not the designers of what that help should be. So, what we need to do, if we want to show our allegiance to the next level, is ask them to steer us in the direction that they know we need to go in order to grow closer to them, to make application to membership in their kingdom, because they're not really interested in giving people the opportunity to have what they consider to be human successes, though they sometimes, Tiendo taught that they sometimes do give certain individuals those opportunities, but when they do that, they're hoping that those humans will see through those opportunities when they exercise them, to see that they really weren't going to pay off what they were really looking for. Because if they have next level mind in them, then they're not going to be satisfied by even getting the things that they think they want. Whether that's, having a mate or a spouse or a lover or a new car or someone to help them with the bills, or the ability to put their kid through college, or, many things, of course, get over a health condition. So the next level will help us with all those things, potentially. But a number of those things they have already given us help about. And what the help that they will give us will be kind of reminding us of things that we could have looked into. But we can't just sit around and expect that help to just fall in our lap. We have to actually put out the effort to go look for it. So we have to try to solve our own problems, but by asking the next level for help shows them that we want them to help us solve our problems. So, but they want us to exercise the effort to put solutions into effect when we see them, when we see the opportunities for them. And those opportunities will always be challenging to embrace, because the name of the game, according to Tiendo, is change. And that's what the idea of the word repentance really meant. It meant change your mind, which means change your thinking. We have to broaden our thinking and expand our thinking and come into seeing more of what's true. And by doing that, we're actually attracting more of the next level mind. Because the truth is synonymous with next level information, next level thinking, next level behaviors. Like one example of how the next level helps people is by the response to calamity, and recognizing that the best thing to do is to get out of the way of calamity. So if you're in a war zone or in a city and it's steeped with violence all around you, don't try to make that environment better. Get out of that environment. Go someplace where there's not going to be so much of that. We can't fix everybody. We can't fix the government. We can't fix anything, really. We can have the sense of fixing some of it, but it gets to a point to where it's beyond fixing. And like for the people in Syria that are flocking out of Syria, for some of them it took a long time for them to get going out of there, but for others they left before it got to be almost impossible to leave. And the same thing happened with many of the Jews in Germany, to where they had years of an ability to get out of the country. But for various reasons, A lot of times they had their businesses and they had their family, and they thought things would turn around. Things, were only temporarily going to be problematic, and so they justified staying until it was too late. And then it was tragic what ended up happening to many of those people. But there is, and that kind of history does repeat itself. Which is happening now. It's repeating itself now, where the unthinkable is actually showing its face more and more. We had a little bit of a respite from the greater difficulties during the Obama years, the years of what was called and translated in the Revelation chapter 6 as the black horse, where horse is the human vehicle, and black represented more than just the coloration of the President of the United States, with the popular terminology of being called black. But I guess I'm not going to try to go into all the different ways that black was a way of identifying that time period. But the rest of that verse talked about it as being a financial, dominated by financial shenanigans, to where Wall Street was involved with prices and commodities, were the wheat and barley, for different prices for that wheat and barley, which looks like a direct correlation to the way the markets work in Wall Street. And then we had the financial crash that Obama came into in his presidency, in his first term, that he was basically in charge of trying to deal with and make look normal. And he might have thought that it was all exactly the way it was told, but I know that there was some manipulation going on there, big time. Not even some, a lot of manipulation going on in big time. And the same thing with the 9/11 attacks. A lot of manipulations going on there. And I'm not going to try to get into all the theories, because some of them were fostered by, I believe, the secret government, to bring confusion to the conspiracies. But there were certainly conspiracies going on there, and in the United States and abroad. And with that, which I consider to be the first fall of Babylon, which is talked about in Revelation chapter 14, and I think in Revelation chapter 20, or maybe it's 18. It's not 19, but where it talks about two fall. It says Babylon is fallen. It says it twice, because that's talking about the new Babylon. But it also has its references to the past Babylon, and actually Iraq fell because of that, because of the 9/11 attacks that gave justification to a double fall. It was a fall of the United States because they stimulated that and looked the other way and covered it up. And so that was a tremendous fall from was led up to, of course, for hundreds of years, of course, but which can be shown through, through my book. I try to show a lot of it through the interpretation of the 7 trumpets sounding, which started more or less in the early 1900s. Or right after the Civil War. I mean, there's lead up to everything all along, because the next level was planning to use the territory, the geography that became the United States long before it became the United States. I mean, thousands of years before that, I think. I suspect. I think there's evidence to that. And T&O talked about that, but they didn't talk about it except for, I believe, this current 19th century. With the way that the United States became a melting pot. Anyway, so it's all coming to a head now, and that's why confusion is the rule, because Babylon actually interprets in the Hebrew to confusion, and stemming from the Tower of Babel, when the Lord was said to confuse the people's speech so that they weren't able to be so dominant in the society. So they they caused a dispersal of the people into different parts of the world at that point, so that their efforts weren't so consolidated. Because then the Luciferians would have too much control over them by teaching them technologies and different things that the humans weren't ready to be taught yet, because they had other choices to make. They were in the first trimester, which was it was approaching the first trimester when that was happening, which was the Moses experience. So the next level was building their classroom then, and so they. Well, I'm not going to try to get into second guessing any more than I already have about how that was related, but it does seem to be pretty apparent. T&O are the ones that talked about how the Moses experience was the first trimester. They used that term, trimesters, as well as Jesus being the second trimester, but it was also preparation for the third trimester during the second trimester. I mean, each trimester prepares for the next one. And so graduation was started as a possibility with the qualifying behaviors and ways during the Jesus trimester. And there are individuals in all trimesters that are growing at the same time in their own grade level. So, but now by the time of the end, every soul that had every significant soul from the past during this entire civilization, and possibly from before the civilization, are back now. Those souls were all brought back to try to take human vehicles to get out of here. And they're all, the option to get out of here still exists. The option to get out of here still exists, as I said. Are you alone? Yeah. Okay. Because I'm doing a video, so I didn't want anybody else that I don't know being here. So anyway, I want to talk about this time period of the judgment. That it's a time of not only, it's also another key word is it's a decision point. And that's for each of us to decide who we're going to give our allegiance to, is the way Tiendo put it. And there's only two choices according to what Jesus taught. And that is the next level, which was called the kingdom of God, the evolutionary level above human, the physical evolutionary kingdom level above human, many-membered, where planets are their laboratories, and they operate inside those planets and outside those planets and around those planets, and with all the bodies that they created, all the planetary bodies they created and designed and manufactured, grew, because they do it in all different ways according to what they've been doing for eternity. There's only one way to say it, it's eternity, because we can't actually compute how long they've been in existence. The next level, that is. Although Doe said that when we got to the next level, when we became members of the next level, we would have a better idea of where the chief came from, which is very interesting, of course, but we're not going to have that knowledge while we're in human vehicles that can't comprehend even hardly the next level, having a real existence. So the other decision is to make, Jesus called Mammon. Now Mammon is most translated to be treasure and wealth. And it's not an accident that it's the word mammones in Greek is related to the whatever Hebrew or Aramaic word that Jesus used that indicates mammalian. That it does have to do with what is a treasure to a mammalian. Now I believe that can also mean intellect and science and art. All those things can be seen as treasure to human beings, to mammalian human beings. And if they're putting their allegiance to those things, then they're not putting their allegiance to the next level at this time, especially. And so in other words, if we think that we can fix the problems on the earth by human means, by human science, by reducing our pollution to maybe change the warming trend, the global warming trend, it's not going to work. But even if it was able to work to some degree, for us to believe in that solution, as opposed to looking to the next level and saying, I want to show you that I'm worthy of advancement out of the human kingdom. So help me do that, because this human kingdom isn't working. So that's the choice we have. Not that it's not right to seek solutions to our local problems. It is right to seek solutions to our local problems. But that's not what's happening with this global warming movement. They're making it sound like the solutions to the problems are, taxation and global, entities. The Paris Accord is going to actually bring about the solution to global warming, ignoring how the sun is affecting the magma inside the earth and whatever else is going on inside the earth, and it's causing the increased earthquakes, like in Yellowstone, and the increased volcanic activity, like that are happening all over the planet, that were all forecasted to be the way that the planet would be recycled. So it's ignoring basically what the next level said was going to happen at this end time, by thinking that humans are the creators of all these problems, even though humans are creating all the problems. But initially, actually, they're not the sole responsibility for those problems. The Luciferian space alien souls are at the top of the creation of all the problems. But the humans, many humans have accepted that they are at the top of the heap. And the Luciferian space aliens have taken control over those leaders, Tiendo taught, because they wanted the most control over the people and control over the agenda of where the money was going to be spent and what was going to be done by the government, because their agenda is twofold, basically. To get off the planet before they're locked up again underground and even recycled, which they know from the legend and from the prophecies is about to take place for them, in regards to them especially. And they want to actually steal new members to their community from the next level souls that were planted, because they can't plant souls. They can't create a soul. They can't, and they can't kill a soul. So, but souls have a special capacity to do more in the human kingdom, to influence humans and to maybe potentially, well, since they can't be killed, they can, Tiendo said that they can go to places in the unseen world that spirits can't. And I've talked about this before, but since some people come to these videos for the first time, so a little recap doesn't hurt. And anyway, but so they will say anything to take people's allegiance away from the next level and to give it to the human kingdom and even to them, or directly or indirectly. So they've got some humans looking to them as gods, and and a lot of those are very liberals, but they're liberals and conservatives both, that are intermingled with the space aliens. But a lot of the Christian conservatives see the space aliens correctly as Luciferian, but they don't recognize that the kingdom of God have physical vehicles and are many-membered and are not etheric, floating on clouds, but also have spacecrafts. Not also, and that's where the spacecraft came from. Even the technology for all the spacecrafts that the Luciferians have, and that the Luciferians gave to the humans in different governments, came from the next level initially, directly or indirectly, because the next level also provided these same, or many of these equivalent kind of lessons and technologies to previous civilizations on Earth, according to Tian-Do. Don't know how much technology. Tian-Do didn't talk about exactly how much technology came from the previous civilization, but the Luciferians came from the previous civilization, and they had spacecrafts that apparently survived because, well, I'm not going to go through any more of that. Enough said. That's because it's not that important. It's like candy, actually, and the candy is not going to get anybody into allegiance to the next level. But paying attention to everything Tian-Do said that's in their book and their tapes will get them to show more and more allegiance to the next level. Not that the next level needs anybody to give allegiance to them. They don't need anybody. They don't even need one person to believe in them. This is for our benefit. They're working to give us the opportunity to become members in their community. They know how real everything is where they operate. Just picture being like in a Star Trek environment, but without human behavior. So no jealousies, no competition, no propagation by mammalian means, no little tiny vehicles running around, that need to be fed with a bottle. As wonderful as that is for a human to experience, it's not, the next level has outgrown that. And it's not wonderful for the next level. They wouldn't enjoy doing that. Although when they come incarnate, they go through it so that they can teach, so they can take vehicles that have that experience so they can relate to humans. That are gonna have the souls coming into those humans, taking over those vehicles that have all those connections and those root systems to families in the human kingdom. And so that then the older members can actually relate 100% to what those humans are going through when they're trying to overcome those attachments. So the human kingdom was not designed to work, according to Tian-Do. They said it in those terms. It was designed to be overcome. It was designed to be outgrown, to be risen above, to be graduated out of, where the human kingdom is equivalent to a school. Well, I want to move on. I want to move on just to the next verse in Revelation, chapter 11, verse 19. Even though I didn't intend to do this right now, I feel like it's the right place to go at this time. So, it's the last verse in Revelation, chapter 11. I'm going to read it. It says, "And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament. And were lightnings and voices and thunderings and earthquake and great hail. Now it's very important to distinguish how these things are all happening in degrees right now, or have happened in degrees right now, and are happening as we go into the future, in the next decade or so, a couple decades maybe 3 decades, I don't know, maybe 4 decades, I don't know exactly, but I doubt it'd be more than that. In fact, I doubt it's even as much as that before the option to show allegiance to the next level is non-existent anymore. And then that's the point to where the total recycling will take place. But meanwhile, what's important is that we have the opportunity right now to take more steps closer to next level membership. By the first step, I believe, understanding everything Tiendo said, and seeking to understand everything they said was true. Seeking to see the truth in everything they said, maybe is a better way to say it. The reality in everything they said and did, and how everything they said and did was for our benefit, for all the students' benefit. Then, and while the students that were with them, and for the students that were to come. There's no necessary differentiation. A student is a student. I mean, of course, there's an active student. They talked about active students, and that's somebody who's actually trying to take on the behaviors and ways and overcome their what would be considered to be weaknesses, which would be behaviors and ways of the human kingdom. Weakness isn't a bad thing. It's through overcoming those weaknesses that we build our mind. So they're necessary. And the earth and the human kingdom is a footstool. So nobody is looked down upon for having weaknesses. It's part of the territory. It's like somebody that doesn't have any muscles, knowing that they don't have any muscles, but they want to be a weightlifter. And so they know they don't have any muscles, and they know they're in a kind of a weakened condition, but they know how to build those muscles because they know they have a good instructor, an excellent instructor, and that is Tiendo. Now, for the sake of individuals that are coming to this for the first time, Do is our immediate older member. T is Do's older member. And but they operated as a partnership when they were here. So when I say looking to T and Do, it's actually the same thing as saying I'm looking to Do, because the only thing Do wanted to do was serve his older member, T. So for him, he has no sense of feeling put down or anything by including T in our asking. Not at all. And they gave us those names so that we would have them as an address. They're actually an address. If we talk to T and Do, we should know that they're going to hear us. Doesn't mean that they're going to pick up the phone, is the way they talked about it. Because they have a crew assigned to do that. And the crew knows how to answer a lot of our questions. And that crew can be depended upon 100% because T&O wouldn't assign them the tasks to be that interface if that crew wasn't able to provide that interface. Now, I'm not one of those crew members. The only crew members I'm talking about are the ones that graduated that we don't know the names of. And we're not to ask those crew members for help. Like, we know the names of them because they were on the exit videos. That would be improper. That would be like something the Luciferians would have us do, is to use those names, like the way the Catholics started talking to the saints, talking to the students, and thinking that this one was, the saint of finding lost things, and this one was the saint of, of this and that and this and that, which is all, I believe, inaccurate, misinformation, and distraction and distortion of the truth. All those statues of all those apostles and stuff is all distortion of the truth. And it's interesting that those distortions actually started with the children of Israel, when they distorted what Moses taught, what Jehovah gave Moses to to give to the student body at that time. And that's why the kingdom of Judah and Benjamin split off of the other kingdom and left that kingdom as the kingdom of Israel, that is largely made up of the descendants that are considered to be Israel today, and their descendants that are largely in the United States, and in particular largely in New York City today, and also California, and in the higher echelon of government and corporations, especially the media, especially the entertainment industry, especially the armaments industry, the military industry, military-industrial complex, especially the politics, especially the pharmaceuticals. I don't know. I may be wrong about some of that as being especially, because I'm not saying that the Jews are all Jewish people that would identify themselves as Jews now are in control of all board of directors on all those corporations, because there's no way to really distinguish them from the humans that are Christians and atheists and whatever other religious basis they claim are just equally in control of all those corporations. Well, I don't know if it's equally, but I'm getting beyond my territory to basically talk about, except for the research I did that showed that those, when that kingdom of Israel and the two tribes that separated, when they were all scattered by the next level to Russia and to the four winds they were scattered to, they ended up migrating to Europe, many of them, and marrying with Gentiles. Gentiles at that point were just anybody that didn't have that blood strain, and so that the blood strains got mixed and mixed and mixed and spread out, and so that they ended up coming to the United States, because Hitler was allowing people to leave Germany when they had a better chance of leaving when they were married to Christians. Because Hitler was most against the ones that were like the staunch purebred Jews, who he blamed for trying to take over Germany, which is a long story, but resulted in World War I and World War II. I'm not blaming the Jews for the wars, because everybody that got involved in the wars had their own agenda, of course. And but there's a lot of evidence that getting the United States involved in the wars in Europe, both times, was stimulated by the Jews at that time. Now, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-Jewish people. I'm not anti-anybody. I'm anti-deceit, and I'm anti-killing, and I'm anti-robbery among people, and telling lies and deceit and sowing seeds of misinformation, talking about the next level in ways that is not accurate, which of course, I hate to say it, but is the Christian community is comprised of organizations that are at the top of the heap of misinformation spreading, which is what Jesus said was the greatest sin, with blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. It was the greatest sin. So I'm not anti-Semitic because I'm anti-human, because human needs to be outgrown if we want to evolve to what our capacity is in these vehicles, using these vehicles to evolve. These vehicles aren't going to evolve any more than they already have. Well, I mean, I don't know what capacity they have to evolve further, mentally and physically. That's not anything I have any experience with. I know the next level could, take them in a number of directions. I mean, when we were in Texas, there was apparently a report that there had been some sightings of a humanoid with wings. And T&O said at that time they didn't think that was impossible. They didn't think that was out of the question. That the next level could have designed humans that could have wings of some sort. So the reason I'm saying it, so I can base what I'm saying on things that T&O have taught. I'm trying to base everything I say on things that T&O have taught, but I know it can. I can spread it out too thin, and try to expand things too much, and I try not to do that. But I'm doing it for the sake of trying to address a lot of the misinformation that has been sown, that I know about. Anyway, so I don't think it's all wrong to do that. But so let's take this first word here. I'm not going to get through this whole verse. And temple of God opened in heaven. This first sentence, actually. Because that's up until the next and potentially starts a new thought about that. So the temple of God was opened in heaven, Now let's look at this word opened first. To open, literally and figuratively, in various applications, to open from ana, A-N-A in the Greek, and oga, to open. So ana has to do with and, or by open, by opened, or each opened, or every opened, or through opened, but it's a compound. So in compounds, as a prefix is the way this is, it often means by implication repetition, intensity, and reversal. Repetition, intensity, and reversal. So the temple of God was opened again, be repetition, opened in a more intense way, opened with a certain intensity, opened as a reversal to a closed condition. Those are the ways that I can think about it in those terms. Okay. So what's interesting about that is how over here in Revelation 15, I'm going to skip down a little bit. It says here in Revelation 15:5, and after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. So what time period is this? Well, it's before the 7 angels come out of the temple, having 7 plagues, clothed pure white linen, having their breasts girded with golden girdles. Okay? Now those 7 angels that come out of the temple having the 7 plagues is talked about throughout Revelations chapter 16, throughout the whole chapter. And those 7 plagues are tied into the 7 angels with trumpets. Some of the events that were to take place in the second wave, during the second wave of the harvest. Now, before I say any more about that, let me go back to 14, where it talks about how well, first of all, I'm going to backtrack a little bit to Revelation 14:8 that says, and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Now remember, fornication can be sexuality. It is sexuality when as a help us overcome our sexuality. But in this case, when it's talking about a nation, they're talking about how, just like fornication was breaking a commitment to our next level groom, in the depiction of a marriage to the groom, which the church is attempting to marry the groom, Jesus, dough. Okay, so fornication also means not giving our all having a false god, actually. Instead of giving it to Do, our allegiance to Do, the kingdom of God, to the next level, Jesus, we're showing our allegiance to the human kingdom. And the human kingdom is made up of all the false gods. Wealth is a big false god. Wealth becomes a god. People die and kill for wealth. And they live for wealth. And they do everything for wealth. So to them, it's equivalent to a god. And so that's the kind of, the wine of the wrath is like the passion. The wine is the passion in the wine press, which is the pressing of the grapes. That is the force, the energy of that lust for wealth. That is what all the nations were drinking from the United States with its vast wealth all over the world. All the nations have been in bed with the United States. That's what it actually means, to generate wealth for their own nations. And so there's no other nation on the planet during this civilization that qualifies. So that's why we know that. And great city, great means big, large. And city simply means polis, P-O-L-I-S, from the Greek, which is a city, which also means it's a vicinity, an area. It's a bordered area, a place with borders, a place with a geographic area where people live. Yeah, right. If there's no people living in that geographic area, then it's not a city. So where Babylon has fallen twice, that has taken place already before well, that is shown as an overview. Okay? But I want to get to the, because that only takes place after the next level has shown its, after the 24 elders and the 4 living beings have graduated. Which I'm not gonna go into another direction at that point, in this point, but because each of these chapters is presenting an entire overview of the whole process. At least chapter 11 is doing it. Chapter 12 does it to some degree, but in more of a greater overview, dealing with the Luciferians, and T is involved in that. Of course, that overview of T's presence, where the 2 witnesses is the focus of chapter 11, and those starts the second wave in the 1990s with the Heaven's Gate, where he comes public by himself saying that he's the return of the same individual who was in the vehicle named Jesus. And so I just wanted to show you that part where it was fallen twice. But we've got the, so their departure was considered the first harvest. And that's depicted here. It's like taking you back then and saying, and I looked, Revelation 14:14, and behold a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Now, I actually think that this is actually taking place in our near future. And that the graduation of the classroom, this also applies to the graduation of the classroom, but it's not over. Like Doe said, the gate wasn't closed. And Revelation chapter 6 talks about how during the fifth seal, many are given give their lives, and that are on earth, that takes place after T and Doe and crew left, and they are awarded new physical bodies that are considered to be well, it doesn't talk about their physical bodies here. It just says that they're taken with a sickle. And I'm still not clear on some of this, so I apologize for that. But because of the timing issue, but I shouldn't be so. I spent so much time on trying to get the timing right on a lot of stuff, and it wasn't necessary. But what is necessary is that this is talking about, behold, a white cloud. And that's a spacecraft. And cloud and white comes from the word Lucas, I believe, which means light, bright, brilliant. So I believe this is talking about the Hale-Bopp comet, or the object that was with it. And that upon that cloud, because cloud actually meant covering, originally in the Hebrew, where the word cloud came from, meant a covering. Because, but it's actually Nephele, which means a cloud, or also. Well, that is, I believe, the Hebrew word, or Aramaic word, I'm not sure, but used as cloud, which led the Israelites in the wilderness. So that's the same terminology for the cloud in this case, which T and Doe said was a cloud of light, was a spacecraft. Even though it might have been shrouded with, T and Doe said the spacecrafts, next level spacecrafts can generate cloud cover. So that we don't know exactly what they are. And I have my reasons for saying, I believe, reasons for thinking that was the case, why they did that, instead of just showing us what their spacecraft looked like. But I've talked about that in a previous video. I'll leave it for then, for those that want to go back and look at it. But it says that it's like the Son of Man. So in other words, it's somebody that is like the individual that was the offspring of human. That's what that Son of Man means. And Jesus said he was coming back. Who did he say was coming back? He said the Son of Man was coming back. In other words, he was coming back incarnate. So talking about somebody that was like the one that was incarnate. So this sounds like it's talking about tea. Or it's talking about Do with his vehicle that was an incarnate vehicle. Might very well be the vehicle that he took with him when he left his task as Jesus. Because it's not impossible that he might bring that vehicle back, and then it would actually be fulfilling the same prophecy in Revelation 19 that the Christians are interpreting as his return. Where he says, talks about the marriage supper, and those who are arrayed, and that to those that get married will be arrayed in fine linen. That's going to be their vehicle, will be of fine linen. And that was linen was considered to be the dress of kings, because only the kings and the people in their court, in their the higher echelon, could afford cloth made from that was called linen, which comes from. That's all he says about it here. Anyway, but so here's where he says the heaven opens, which goes back to Revelation 11, right? And the temple of God was opened in heaven. Now remember how temple was shrine, a fane, a dwelling. See that? Primary meaning of, whoops, moving the wrong part. I gotta move my software. Oh boy. Good enough. But anyway, so temple means from the primary N-A-I-O, Greek word neo, to dwell. So it's a dwelling place. And then Jesus talked about, remember how he said, in my Father's kingdom there are many mansions? Well, actually the word mansion really means residence, place that they reside. Dwelling is the same word. And it's only used a few times in the New Testament. I don't know if it's the same word as used here for temple, because that puts a different look to it. Actually, I can look at that. Well, I don't want to get into all this right now. Anyone can look this up and make those connections and see if, because it doesn't really matter if those words are the exact same word or not, because the next level, when they gave these revelations, they wanted a certain amount of it to be hidden from being able to understand them completely. So how they did that, I'm not one to really say if it was planned to have, but the words are very much linked a lot of times. Okay, so I don't know if this is the exact same word that was translated to mansions, but someone can look it up and let me know. I'll probably look at it later. But going back to boy, I'm a mess today in terms of staying organized. But I'm at least, bringing you to certain parts of the Revelation that you can then, study for yourself and and make the same connections or even expand on, and show me even more connections that can be made from them. But here's where the biggest depiction of Jesus returning is in Revelation 19:11, where it says, "And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse." Again, a white horse. Now, well, I'm going to finish reading it. "And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war." So before, in Revelation 14, it was called a white cloud. And by the way, it was said when Jesus came, he would come as lightning shone from the east to the west, as lightning shines from the east to the west, which the word lightning stems from the word aster, which meant a star. So they were talking about that you would see like a star-like light going from east to west, which would be like along the ecliptic, which is what a comet really looks like, because the comet looks like a star, but it's strewn is part of the definition of that word that was used there. And strewn has to do with, I believe, the tail of that comet, as opposed to just seeing a light in the sky, moving across the ecliptic. So when he's saying white horse, in this case, well, the next verse kind of brings it out more, what I'm going to talk about in terms of the use of white horse here. And that is Revelation 19:12 says, "His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself." And then the next verse is important to this. "And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God." Now, this vesture is actually from the Greek word himation, which means, is also translated 30 times as garment, 12 times as raiment, 12 times as clothes, 2 times as robe, 2 times as robe, 2 times as vesture, and 1 time as apparel. Now Doe said that his soul was wrapped around his vehicle. No, he said his vehicle was wrapped around his soul. In other words, clothing. Doe said that he put his vehicle in a closet before he came. His next level vehicle, he put it in a closet before he came. He didn't say that about T's next level vehicle, because T could operate more than one next level vehicle at the same time. So, maybe Doe didn't graduate to that level yet, or that more advanced vehicle, or more advanced capacity to have more than one physical vehicles operating at the same time. Because Doe said T didn't need all her mind to come and do this task in the human vehicle. So part of her mind was operating this human vehicle, and part of her mind awakening it, and part of her mind was still on a spacecraft somewhere, maybe even managing this task. I say maybe, but I'm sure it was managing this task, but could have been doing other things too. Maybe she could have another vehicle that was doing something else. I have no idea. He didn't say how many vehicles she could operate. So we can't make any assumptions. But the fact that this is a garment means that this white horse over here was not the garment that he was wearing, was not the physical vehicle that he was wearing at the time when he came back. And definitely refers to the horse as a spacecraft in this case, even though it wasn't said the same way as in Revelation 14 as a white cloud. Because maybe it's not the same. Because Doe said that when he came back, after they left with the Hale-Bopp comet, or the object that was with the Hale-Bopp comet, he would come back with an armada of spacecrafts. He said even thousands of spacecrafts could come back, and he said also the Luciferians could have thousands of spacecrafts. But I'm not exactly clear on how he said that in Beyond Human. I think it was the 11th session, I think it was, the 11th session where he talked about thousands of spacecrafts coming back not stages, he said in different times, but I forgot the word he used. Shifts, I think he said, maybe. But I guess over a period of time this would be taking place. And because the humans were still going to be able to be tricked by this. So I suspect that first would be he would come back. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that yet, unless I can show some prophecy that indicates the possibility. But so this isn't the same horse, even though it's the same term, the same Greek word. But I think it's hippos. Interesting that it's hippos, like a hippopotamus, right? So it's not the same horse as in Revelation 6, 2, that says that he comes riding a white horse. Because in that circumstance, it's talking about Doe, for sure. So his vehicle. So, but horse can be used because both are vehicles, and both can be next level vehicles actually, because T and Doe said a next level vehicle could actually be a spacecraft. So the idea of showing him riding on top of a mammalian horse with wings is actually not that far-fetched as a possibility. Even though I don't know if the next level would do that. But in a sense, you can see that it could be a strategy that they could depict that and allow that to be depicted in the in things that were painted years ago, in the 1500s or whatever, that were kind of a way of like hiding the full truth, but giving enough of the truth so that when the real truth came, those that were ready for the whole truth would recognize it as being possibility and being related to the whole truth of being spacecrafts, because of what Tiendo said about them, about spacecrafts can actually be grown to become a vehicle that a next level soul that is also physical can actually take over and drive, pilot, and manipulate. That would have a lot of functions besides just transportation, Tiendo said. But I don't believe for a second that when this takes place in the future, the semi-near future, some years off, that we're going to see literally a horse in the sky. But the Luciferian space aliens, they may try to put a hologram horse in the sky. That's a possibility. The trick to humans, the trick to Christians, that would allow themselves to be tricked, because when they had the chance to pay attention to the reality brought by Tiendo, they didn't take it. And it's just not one chance that they get. They get many chances. And every time the Heaven's Gate story is in the news, there are probably thousands of Christians that see those stories on Yahoo News and MSNBC and the networks, because every year they were doing it for the first 10 years, putting something up there during the anniversary, and then documentaries were written, and then he was considered to be the mass, being equivalent to Jim Jones, and so they would have all these different little blurbs where they would say, here's the 10 worst cult leaders in history, and Doe would be among them, as erroneous as that was. But each time that was done, that was put before the people. So they were given another opportunity to look, say, I wonder if there was more to that. I remember when that happened, and my pastor told me about it, and even gave a sermon about it, how horrible that was. Or maybe the pastor said that maybe that was from God, who knows? But didn't say anything more about it. And so it went in their computer, but they didn't put any more effort out until, who knows? I mean, it's a long shot maybe, but I guess anything's possible. I know there were some individuals that, I even met a young girl who was, she was she was in college, so she was probably at least 19. I was actually playing music at an open mic, and she liked the way I played, and she was with her friends, and it was a bar, and she said to me, that was really good, what you did, and I really liked it, and where'd you learn to play, blah, blah, blah. She was inquisitive. She was a little probably drunk or stoned, or both. And I started talking with her and her friends, but mostly her. And at that time, I was, before we go out to play music, I would smoke a little marijuana, and then my lips would be loose. looser than they were when I wasn't stoned. I have to be honest to say. That was many years ago. Now I don't need the marijuana to have my lips loose when I go out to play music in places. If someone stimulates conversation, I'm going to talk about it no matter whether my lips are loose or not. If I get an indication that they're open to some talk about UFOs or whatever. And I pretty quickly sometimes go to the subject of Heaven's Gate. And what I did with this person is I said, I talked about UFOs, and she seemed to be interested. And I got on the subject of Heaven's Gate, and she said, Heaven's Gate? What was that? I said, well, that was people that took their lives, 10 years ago. This must have been 10 years ago by now that I did that. And she said to me, said, I thought there was something different about them, that there wasn't the same thing as the other cults. There was something different about them, she said. And I said, yeah, because they were the truth. And then it was maybe a year later, or 2 years later, I was actually hosting the open mic. It was maybe the last time I hosted the open mic in that bar. She came like drunk as a skunk. She came into that bar and with her friends and was having a good time. And then I was sitting there. I was sitting actually talking to somebody else, and she said, "Oh, I know you. You're the one that taught me about cults." She said that really loud. And that was the last time I played in that place. Actually, I went back there to an open mic. That was a bluegrass night. I just sat in. I went there a couple times and just sat in with people, and sometimes, because the owner liked my music. And I talked many times about UFOs there, and he wasn't necessarily a believer, but he was tolerating me because of my music. And but there were people there that definitely didn't like me there, and were trying to get rid of me. So I lost that hosting gig that paid $50 to host for the night because I talked too much about Heaven's Gate. So that's how we ended up separating from the human kingdom, by the way. That's one of the ways. It's not the ultimate ways, but that's what happened with me and my ex as well. The one that was my partner for all those years. I was talking too much about Heaven's Gate. And I didn't buy all the spiritual talk, like in that movie Zeitgeist, and that video that was called The Secret, where they taught you that you could draw to you anything you wanted in this world by just meditating on it. And you would, if you wanted a sports car, then somehow the universe would bring you a sports car. Well, yeah, the Luciferians will help you, especially if it takes you away from paying attention to the next level. They'll help you. And there's many discarnates that'll help you. And those discarnates can be sent to you by the Luciferians to give you things, so that that you prove to them that the spirit world exists, and that you can get things through that. So when it says that the vesture that he's wearing when he comes back was dipped in blood, when I first saw that I thought, dipped in blood? And the vesture was his clothing he's wearing at the time, okay, and he's in a spacecraft, and the vesture he's wearing is dipped in blood. So the word dipped comes from bapto, which is the basis of baptism. So in other words, he was baptized in blood, this vehicle. And what vehicle was baptized in blood? Literally. Jesus. He was washed with his blood. That's what the Christians say, right? That we're all going to be washed in his blood. But no, we got to be washed in our own blood. But he gave us the example of washing our sins away, our human behaviors away, our human attachments, our separation from the human kingdom and from the human vehicle by giving our life. And blood represents our life, however that happens. And it's said to happen in Revelation chapter 6. During the fifth seal, well, during the fourth seal, it's possible that it happens. But especially during the reason, I'll tell you why I say that. Because here in Revelation 6:8, 6:9, I'm going to read it. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God. Now, let me take it piece by piece, because slain for the word of God, and that word slain is apokataino, by the way. So that means that it's talking about under the altar are the souls of them that separated from their vehicles by dying themselves. Well, no, it doesn't say themselves here. So separated from their vehicles by dying. Separated by dying would be the interpretation of, or exited by dying is another word, because apo means separate or exit when it's used in a conjunction. Or as a prefix in a conjunction. No, in a two-part word. I forgot what you call that word now. So they were separated by dying for the Word of God. You know what? I need to put this into the other program, 6.9. Because I need to look at these words through their best usage to talk about this verse. Okay, so when he had opened the fifth seal, remember, seal is an affirmation period of time when individuals are showing their allegiance to the next level, to Tiendo. It has to be through to Tiendo that they're showing their allegiance. Otherwise, the next level will judge. If they don't know about Tiendo, then the next level has a different criteria for whether to save that spirit or soul. You saw, and this is from Edo, to see, to know actually also. So to know, under the altar was beneath or down under, The altar, of course, is where the next level members give their lives, and that's the U.S. Southwest is the bottom line of what the altar is. But under the altar is where the high priest, Aaron, in the Moses camp would put the blood from the flesh sacrifice. He would pour the blood under the altar. So that's what this is referring to. So they would go into the earth, and so that's the depiction of the human vehicle going back into the earth. As opposed to the human vehicle leaving with the vehicle. And what he saw then under the altar, were the souls of them that were slain for the Word of God. Slain, like I said, apokataino. Oh, I'm wrong about that. I'm glad I came over here. Okay, so slain is to butcher, or to slaughter, or specifically to maim, or kill, slay, or wound. So this is actually talking about somebody being killed by not just, like apokataino also can be interpreted as kill in any way or destroy, where this sphazo doesn't have any other interpretations like that. So this is the opening of this. So this is talking about then the individuals that died before now. So during the time of the fourth seal, that were died for the Word of God. So that might be me. If somebody doesn't like what I'm saying and comes and tries to get rid of me, or anybody else. And but that could apply to when that happens. See, the fifth seal is opened during this time when this happens. So it doesn't say when, when it's going to happen. It could potentially happen, I guess, during the fourth seal. Because during the fourth seal, the saints are overcome. So all those that were considered to be saints, which I don't know if that applies to me, in case anybody's wondering about whether I think that or not. I don't know if it applies to me or not. I think my behaviors need to be a little better before I would maybe qualify. But if saint is defined as somebody who gives his life to the next level, then I guess I would qualify. Even though maybe I'm not doing it to the degree that Doe would have me do it. But I'm not the judge of that. I'm just taking it a step at a time. I'm willing to lose my life in that way. Which I know doesn't seem like we're ever going to be in that situation, but things are changing fast. And going downhill fast in the government and stuff. And it's not going to be easy going forward. And we're not always going to be able to talk about this online. So, so under the altar, souls, So those are the individuals that gave their lives, gave their blood, and that didn't go to the next level. They weren't taken yet. So they were under the altar. In other words, they were in storage at some point. Or maybe they had a task to do. Maybe they were given a task to do in the unseen world. Like they said, Jesus, when he died, he went under, he went to hell, or which may be considered to be parts of the spirit world, to preach to them that were in there. Because there could be all kinds of degrees, maybe, of chambers that could be considered hell. I don't know, Maybe there would be a task for those that died because of that, to do in that condition. Because slain for the word of God would, the word of God at this point would mean the teachings of Tiendo. But would include the teachings of Jesus, because Jesus was the Word of God. It might even refer to, well, it's a combination. It doesn't refer to any one more than the other, I wouldn't think. And they also died or killed, and for the testimony which they held. And what does testimony mean? Witness. Yes, I am a witness. I'm a witness to Tiendo. So that might be one of the reasons why this vehicle is bumped off. And just so happens that word for witness and testimony is Greek word marturia, which comes from the word martus, which actually means a witness, by analogy, a martyr, or a record, someone who's talking about the records, which that's what I'm talking about now. I'm talking about what Doe called the Bible. He said it was the records. The backside of the truth. The backside of the book. Remember Doe published in the backside of their book the sayings from Jesus and a little bit, one from Isaiah and one from Psalms. Doe referred to the Psalms a few times. I think the one he referred to the most was, Psalm 91. Talks about on high mountain, which I need to go read that one time. I don't think I spend much time on that one in my book. And the testimony which they held. They held or hold. So, anyway, and these individuals that we're talking about here during the fifth seal cried with a loud voice. These souls that were under the altar cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" Now, those that were under the earth could also be all the souls that died previously for Jesus. And even some that may have died during the time from after Doe left with the crew, with the first fruit crew, till now, until this time period. We don't know if there are individuals who committed suicide that didn't leave a message saying that they were believers in Tiendo. There was one that I know about that was I think it was in the San Francisco Bay Area, who was told to be, he was a roadie for the Grateful Dead at one point, and he committed suicide. But I'm not aware that he left any kind of a note saying why, or if he went to the Southwest to do it. But it was after Doe and the crew left in 1997. So that could be talking about him. There don't have to be a whole bunch of people we're talking about. It could be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. I don't know. It could be Rick Odie, Just Odie, Oscar Odie, and Gab Odie. They could be doing a task right now, all around the planet, in their soul bodies, and in the spirit world, because they can do things in the spirit world that human spirits can't do. So the next level may have a use for that, use for individuals to do that. Not that they would be left behind for that purpose, but the next level could have given them certain difficulties, tests, that if they failed those tests, would find them outside the classroom at this time. And then the next level could take advantage of them in a new capacity. I'm not saying that's what happened. They may have went with the others. But it's not out of the question, I don't think. So the next verse said, and white robes were given unto every one of them. Now, white robe, again, is that same word that's translated to stole. Well, this is different, isn't it? Let's see what stole is translated to be. In this place it's called clothing, actually talking about literal clothing. It doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter because if the next level is giving them white robes, a next level vehicle, a human vehicle is not a white robe. A human vehicle would not be considered to be white because, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with the race of the vehicle. White has to do with light. So Lucas, white is light. So it's a light robe or a light white robe, because white can be associated with well, because pure light is white. But that doesn't reflect on the white race, or there really is no white race, there's a Caucasian race. So, you know, white was like a, well, it was made into something more than it was. However, I'm not going to go into all that, talk about that, because it's not a good broadcast for that discussion about white, usage of the term white, and the race usage of the term white in terms of the Caucasian people, humans. But robes, a stole, a long-fitting gown, long clothing, garment, long robe. Well, I just should have looked at where the Revelation's usage of that. Great multitude which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, and people, tongues, stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed in white robes. See, they're standing before the Lamb, clothed in white robes. So they're talking about a next level vehicle. These are being, every one of them that died for the next level, that gave their lives to the next level, that were the souls under the altar, were all awarded white robes. Oh, but it says they're going to be there for a little season. It was said that they need to rest for a little season. What's going on? Okay? Until their brethren, their fellow servants also, and their brethren, both. In other words, brethren would refer to, I think, those of the same strain of human vehicles, because T and Do talked about how there would be some individuals that each class member that graduated, especially, had a strain of that were from the same strain of, I think, human vehicle, I think is the way they were talking about it, but could also refer to spirits or souls, I think, I suspect. Because one of the things that we were doing when we came back from having served the next level 2,000 years ago through Jesus, T and Do said that we were, I guess I shouldn't say we, because everyone's going to think about that I'm on some ego trip about this. And no, I'm tardy. By saying we, I'm showing my tardiness, my failure to graduate with my group. But that I can't deny what T and Do talked about, and I was there when they were saying this, and so I naturally think it applies to me. If it doesn't apply to me, then I don't know that it doesn't apply to me. So, but it's not a personal thing, actually, I'm talking about here. I don't get any benefit from being, having been a soul in the past, right now. Right now, I am what I am. And if anything, I'm tardy because I was given so much and I didn't take advantage of it to the full degree that I could have taken advantage of it. So, so fellow servants, to me, would mean individuals that were that had also given their all, decided to give their lives to the next level, right now. Anybody that's out there that I know about or don't. Of course, I don't know anybody by name, by human name, that's out there, except for Carlody, and well, there's a few others that were Odies, so they could be included in that bunch, and And anyone else who has decided to give their all to the next level could be also another one of those, is definitely a fellow servant. Where their soul originated from, I don't have any idea. They could have originated with Jesus, because Jesus had 70 disciples that he sent out at one point, and the 12. I think the 12 might have been included in that number, but they might have also not been included in that number. There was some indication that in addition to that number, so there could have been 82, and then there were all the female students that didn't have the same kind of tasks, because they had female vehicles that would have had a real hard time traveling around with a bunch of men that they weren't married to, and talking, because what good was it going to be if they just traveled with them and didn't talk? And for all I know, some did travel with them. I don't know, maybe, it didn't talk about that. Didn't say, did it, the 70 disciples. So brethren could mean individuals that believe in Tiendo, but they're not ready to give their all. They're not ready to, or they might not even have heard about Tiendo. Maybe that's the category that we're talking about in this case, where this is category 2 of the individuals that Tiendo said still had some weaknesses to overcome, that weren't graduating with them at that time. And then the brethren might be those that Tiendo said were those that never heard about Tiendo, but were separating from the world in their own way, which would make them brethren because they would be from the same strain. Because the whole entire strain of individuals, be they souls and spirits in vehicles, being the spirit being what's generated by the vehicle's genetic structure and its experiences through life, would, in many cases, be separating from the world naturally. Whether, Doe talked about them as even being potentially in militia groups, being anti-government. Not that he was condoning violence. He wasn't condoning violence by saying that. But he was saying that some of them that were in those militia groups were in their own way separating from the human kingdom by not believing in and giving their allegiance to the other side, the Mammon, treasure, and the government. But they haven't overcome the world yet, so they still have things to overcome. So they're not going to be seen as, and they're not necessarily going to be talking about Jesus or the next level, because they haven't brought in enough of that mind yet, maybe, and so they could be Syrian refugees, for all I know. We don't know, because they're leaving their world behind. They're leaving their human. If they had a business in Syria at one time, they might have been holding out for a while, trying to see if it would blow over the war there, and whether they can continue their business, or they were going to school, or they had a spouse, or they were taking care of their mother and dad. All the reasons they had to stay in Syria, either those reasons disappeared, and they had nothing to live for there anymore, and so they left, or they left that behind because they couldn't stand to be there anymore, and they couldn't allow themselves to cling to that. They had to try to find, work to where they could send money back, and many did. Many do. Actually, I heard about a story about how that many do find work, especially early on. They found work before it became a refugee crisis. Doesn't matter what they say they believe in, Islam or Hindu or Buddhist or nothing. Atheist, doesn't matter what they say they believe in. It's what they feel in their hearts and what they're thinking about towards the next level, what they think as their Lord, and how they try to live by the instructions they got from the Lord that came through the records that they became aligned with. And it doesn't matter whether they're breaking some of those rules or not, because they're in human vehicles. They haven't overcome them yet. And the next level could have been the next level crew, the ones that left. Could be in spacecrafts, in crews, with connections to all those people that are asking for help, from Allah or from God, whatever their terminology is, and can be helping them decide to separate. Can be kind of encouraging them, get out of there, leave there, you know, when they would ask for help. The message that they might have been given was, leave, leave. You know, look for help someplace else. And then when they do that, they might also come in contact with information about tea and dough, especially if they go to English-speaking areas. So all these that give their lives between now and when they lose their vehicles are, when they're doing it as servants, well, it doesn't say that the fellow servants and the brethren will be awarded next level vehicles, actually they wouldn't be next level vehicles at this point. I don't think. I think they would be infant next level vehicles. So vehicles grown by the next level, but that still had the ability to fall. They might be the equivalent vehicles to some of the ones that some in the 38 or 42 received, which I believe they received vehicles when they left. Where I would think that at least 28, at least 28 of those, but it might not be, would have received next level vehicles that were adult next level vehicles. Yeah, because they were also the ones that threw down those vehicles when they came, which it says in Revelation chapter 5 and chapter 7 talks about that as well, and maybe one other place, maybe chapter 4 as well. All right, well, I didn't get too far, but I went through a lot of different connections here. And so I want to keep this video to what it is now, I guess, at this point. I'm kind of tired too, so I'll talk to you next time. Good night.